Welcome. Welcome to Vanadium. I'm Chris Rankin. The more I learn about this mad world, the more mysterious it seems. Vanadium is a show about science, about the mysteries, great and small, and cinema. There are some movies that just get to me. There are some movies that are just special. Real Genius, 1985, represents the best of the best. The cream of the crop of the science, call it nerd if you want, adventure genre. However, Real Genius is much more and runs far deeper than Revenge of the Nerds and Weird Science. In addition to some great science scenes and good-natured 80s fun, Real Genius gives a glimpse into the complex relationship the creative and intelligent have with the corporate world of money and power. The title sequence is a tour of historical blueprints of weapons development across the ages, from tomahawks all the way to nukes. Over the jazzy song, You Took Advantage of Me. An interesting musical choice, maybe for all the optimistic, bright, gullible young minds who saw their scientific ideas repurposed from potential benefits to humanity to doomsday weapons. This is a fear at the core of the movie, kind of an eerie song selection. You Took Advantage of Me. The titles lead to a spaceship scene that turns out to be a corporate promotional video playing for some military-industrial fat cats. They're all gathered around in a dark, ominous conference room, watching essentially a classified TV commercial for a space-based laser assassination system, a space shuttle fitted with a laser gun. Those freedom-hating assholes will never see that coming. In the video, a dictator-looking fellow in a tropical-looking place is vaporized by a laser beam coming from the heavens. All that's left is the crisp edge of his chair and a bit of his cigar. Back in the boardroom, the businessmen have all gotten together to make a deal for this high-powered space assassination laser gizmo called Project Crossbow. If the generals weren't on board before with this laser, the high-tech TV commercial definitely sold them. They're ready to sign a check for billions of taxpayer dollars to get the gizmo, but there is one hiccup, a slight delay with the laser's power source. The arms-dealing corporation assures the military brass not to worry, that their new laser is almost ready, that they have the best minds in all of science working diligently on the problem. The exec jokes about the next product they're selling just before lunch, just before the scene closes, saying, "Let's see the next film on blinding techniques, and then we'll all get some lunch." That's where we meet Mitch, played by Gabe Jarrett, at the science fair, of course. He's doing high-level laser physics research amidst a group of students getting mice drunk and flying paper airplanes. Mitch doesn't exactly fit in with the kids, even the nerds his age. Professor Hathaway, played by stellar villain William Atherton, swoops in to rescue Mitch from his mundane surroundings and brain-dead peers. Turns out Mitch, although only 15, has the right stuff to work on the military laser power source problem. He wants Mitch to ditch the morons in high school and come straight to college at Pacific Tech. Hathaway tells him he's going to get to work with his idol, the great Chris Knight, who Mitch calls a legend in the National Physics Club. The next scene, we meet the legendary Chris Knight while he's in the middle of a job interview for a high-tech electronics company. Let's just say his interview style is casual. He's flirting with the staff, wearing pin-on alien antennae, and wearing an I Love Toxic Waste t-shirt. Chris is played by the real-life, real genius, Iceman, Doc Holliday, Val Kilmer. Chris Knight's reputation for technical achievement seems at odds with his personal demeanor. During the interview, he also insults one of the company's scientists for a defect in one of the satellites he designed, for, as he said, raining debris all over Europe. When called one of the world's finest minds, Chris Knight says that one day he hopes to be two of them. We get to Pacific Tech, which bears a striking resemblance to Caltech. Mitch joins the physics department faculty for afternoon tea. He's eager to meet Chris Knight, who he learns is not in attendance at the tea party. Mitch gets to the graffiti-lined physics dorm, the campus's equivalent to the other side of the tracks, where he finally meets his physics idol, the prodigy, Chris Knight. Chris is not the focused, serious nerd Mitch expected. Chris Knight has an alternative work ethic, describing his life pursuits in science as a long series of diversions in an attempt to avoid responsibility. Back in the lab, Mitch meets Kent, a competitive, ambitious, cutthroat nerd, also working unwittingly on the big military laser project. This is the physics prima donna team, but Chris Knight is playing hooky. Kent and the other members of the Nerd All-Star team give Mitch the new guy treatment, giving him all kinds of shit for being too young and inexperienced. Professor William Atherton comes by the lab for an inspirational speech to his student team, demoting Kent from heading the laser project to picking up his dry cleaning, putting 15-year-old Mitch in charge of the group and telling him that even though it's his first day and he hasn't even set his backpack down, his research is already behind schedule. We also find out that William Atherton Hathaway detests popcorn. This is very relevant later in the story. Then, Chris Knight freezes the entire dorm for a skating event, which he calls Pacific Tech Smart People on Ice. Cue 80s synth montage of Mitch at Pacific Tech, taking notes in the lectures, grinding in the lab, and hustling just to keep up with the best of the best in physics. At the same time, Chris Knight is breezing through it all in his bedroom slippers, without a care in the world. Mitch starts seeing a strange bearded mystery man coming in and out of their dorm closet at night. He believes that he may be hallucinating from the stress. Professor Hathaway is under pressure from the military-industrial complex to deliver his space assassination laser. He needs his 5 megawatts. The professor is getting frustrated with Chris Knight's lackadaisical attitude and lack of dedication to the project. He tells him, "I want to start seeing a lot more of you in the lab." To which Chris Knight responds, "Fine, I'll gain weight." Hathaway orders Chris and the research group to work around the clock to deliver the 5 megawatts within weeks. The pressure is on. So this leaves Chris no other choice. He uses the laser lab to set up a light show to bring everyone to a wet and wild pool party, complete with a makeshift water park in one of the lecture halls. These stuffy university halls could use more water slides. Chris also brings in some outside talent from a local beautician college to give his classmates what he tells them might be the only opportunity for them to get laid in their entire lives. Mitch is out of place at first, but eventually cozies up to his colleague and eventual love interest, the sweet and hyperactive Jordan. Of course, evil nerd Kent has to spoil all the fun and rat everyone out to Professor Hathaway. He's furious that the group isn't in the lab. He even comes in and shuts off Bryan Adams playing on the boombox. Hathaway chastises Mitch for not working hard and not being good enough for Pacific Tech. Mitch takes this very hard and makes a tearful phone call home to his mom. His mom calls him her little soldier and tells him he should tough it out through the experience. The trouble is, evil nerd Kent records this call and broadcasts it over the entire Pacific Tech public address system for the entire school. This does nothing to improve Mitch's day. He's ready to leave school and head back home before Chris Knight gives him a pep talk. He tells Mitch that he was once much like him, serious, stressed, in over his head and working all the time. He tells him how to channel his creativity into personal power. He teaches him how to achieve autonomy in his life and gain self-respect. He also warns Mitch about the bearded man in the closet, Laszlo Holyfeld, the former big brains on campus, apparently smarter than them both put together. Laszlo had a nervous breakdown in the 70s from the stress of the sciences. Chris warns Mitch that he might be going down the same road as Laszlo. He offers an opportunity for revenge against Kent, calling it a moral imperative. Chris, Mitch, and Jordan sneak out to the lab parking lot, disassemble Kent's car, and reassemble it in his dorm room. The humor of the situation is totally lost on Kent. Professor Hathaway is furious with Chris Knight's attitude and lack of progress, so he threatens to throw him out of school and make sure he never works in the laser physics field again. Next is one of my favorite scenes in Real Genius. It's the only scene in the movie where the stress gets to Chris. He believes he may finally be defeated by the forces of authority. That's when Mitch gives him the moral imperative pep talk. Mitch convinces him that he has to try to make their laser work, if anything, just for the love of physics, for the science game, and the desire to see unimaginable laser power. We're talking 5 megawatts here. They're determined to work together to finish the laser project and force Professor Hathaway to let Chris Knight graduate. Cue 80s training montage. Instead of running around with jump ropes and weights, our heroes are in the lab, aligning optics and connecting power supplies, all the while studying for exams. It's 1 step forward and 2 steps back, just like the lab in real life. Trial and error. Chris and Mitch are on the grind to get to 5 megawatts by the end of the semester. It's like Rocky, but in the lab with chemicals and electronics. Then, a physics groupie tries to put the moves on Mitch because he's one of the top minds in the country and she's checking names off the list. He rebukes her advances and immediately confesses his love to the hyperactive engineering student, Jordan. Finally, it looks like they have the project nailed. Right at the deadline, the laser is ready to go with Chris's new designs. However, it's then sabotaged by Kent when he intentionally greases up the optics. Chris realizes Kent's treachery only when the oil on the lens bursts into flames and nearly burns down the lab. It looks like all is lost. Val Kilmer does a great job showing frustration and rage at the failure of the test. Chris loses it, knocks some dry ice loose from the freezer, and is hit with sudden inspiration. He goes from a fit of desperate rage to a joyful dance across campus to tell the world about his new solution to the laser problem. Kent's sabotage drove Chris to an even better idea. His new laser produces a light beam hotter than the sun. The test firing shoots a laser beam through every wall and tree and statue's head all the way across Pasadena. The project is a slam dunk. Chris's new breakthrough forces Hathaway to stop busting his balls and let him graduate. Professor Hathaway even guarantees Chris a cushy job when he's all done. They all get burgers to celebrate. All is right with the world. Not for long. That's when bearded Laszlo tracks them down at the burger joint to warn them that Hathaway is up to no good with their new invention. He tells them they, like him, had just delivered a weapon to the military-industrial complex. The use of the laser was something our naive young team hadn't even considered. They were just focused on solving the problem. They go back to the lab and discover Hathaway and the men in black have already made off with the laser assassinator. Hathaway plans a test to show the laser's ability to vaporize a human target from space. Chris and the gang have to get that laser back quick. They hatch a creative and elaborate scheme to get information on the laser's whereabouts. They anesthetize Kent and implant him with a radio receiver so that he becomes convinced he's hearing the voice of Jesus in his head. Even Kent wasn't aware of the laser's end use. They trick him into revealing where Hathaway is headed. They also use the voice of Jesus to force Kent to stop playing with himself. Phase 2 of the gang's plan involves hijacking the laser's guidance system before the military's aerial test. Hathaway and the generals are waiting to assassinate a plastic dummy dictator from a B-1 spy plane. They want to try that out first before mounting the laser to the space shuttle. Safer to crawl before we walk, the general surmises. Chris and Mitch break into a classified military base with some fake mustaches to make some changes to the laser's computer programming. The gang also stashes something, and a lot of something, very mysterious, in Professor Hathaway's new, tasteful house. Chris's new computer code tricks the laser's guidance system into delivering the laser blast right into Hathaway's living room, igniting a massive aluminum foil-covered pile of that something I mentioned. The famous popcorn scene is spectacular, but not what I would call legit from a physics point of view. I don't recommend chemical lasers as a method for cooking popcorn, or popping corn as a method of demolishing buildings. Poor Professor Hathaway. It was such a nice house. His test was a failure. Instead of cooking the dummy dictator, he nuked his own house and filled it with his most hated substance. And he made a jackass of himself in front of the military brass. He's going to have trouble getting more funding from those guys. His house is destroyed in front of all of Pasadena in noteworthy fashion. The neighborhood children fill their pockets and buckets with popcorn. Chris Knight, Mitch, Jordan, Ick, the whole gang is all there and delight in the moment. Let's hear from Tears for Fears. Everybody wants to rule the world. It's a great song to end the movie. The moral of this story is, don't mess with nerds. Idealism can be a force of nature. Respect people's principles. Respect the power of love and friendship. For some, it's not all about money. Another important message from Real Genius and science altogether is that authority must be questioned. I have a rendering of Chris Knight on my wall. That's how serious I am about Real Genius. Thank you very much. This was Chris Rankin with Vanadium.